here it is, the equation for predicting progress in language learning. All right, and a couple of notes here. Careful that your bird streak doesn't suck away too much of your time immersing with the language, because the bigger that gets, the smaller the overall progress number is. And don't forget to learn as many words as you can and stay motivated. All suspiciously descriptive pseudoscientific models aside, finding the right way to measure your progress in language learning means that you start climbing the ladder of progress sooner rather than just walking around in circles at the bottom. And while measuring your progress might sound like it'll suck the fun out of language learning for you, even a little bit of it can help you avoid the equivalent of social media doom scrolling with language learning and will help you instead to develop a love for a new language. To measure anything, you have to pick what units you're going to use, and once you have that metric, you can begin to set goals for what you want to achieve. And then once you have those goals, measuring them ensures that you stay on the right course. For language learning, we're talking about understanding and communicating. At a first glance, let's look at a few metrics that describe the broad approach to a language. Particularly as an individual language learner, a few recommendations for what you could track would be the total number of words that you can recognize or use in your target language, or the total amount of time that you're spending in your language, or perhaps a daily streak with a specific language learning app. But at second glance, each one of these metrics can have its drawbacks. Knowing individual words does not necessarily mean that you know how to piece them together. Or spending time with a language may just be a mirage where you focus on the story and not the language, and then that anime doesn't teach you Japanese like you hoped. And ooh-wee, how dare you say that my skills are remedial after I just crossed a 500-day quote-unquote learning streak in an app designed by a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar corporation that rewards mediocrity because I just solve a word match puzzle that I guess relies more on logic than on understanding of the language. Okay, I guess I can't understand the language, but the streak has to count for something, right? Okay, before we move on to other metrics and the ones that I personally recommend, it can also be incredibly helpful to use a standardized system to track, measure, and plan your progress. I'm beginning that process now as I prepare for a future C1 exam, and I'm very excited to be partnering on this video with Lingoda because they can help you make significant progress in your language learning. Lingoda is an online language school that has helped tens of thousands of language learners to improve their understanding and speaking abilities. Before taking my first class with Lingoda, I had already taken 3 extended courses in multiple languages with universities and government subsidized programming, but Lingoda stood out for 3 reasons. The teachers are warm, encouraging, and engaging native speakers. They will give you personalized feedback and guidance after every lesson so you know where you stand and how to reach your language goals. And then there's the immersive approach and the structured curriculum that is conversation-led, which means that you can tailor your language learning. And they have 3 learning paths, which means you can embrace the right level of rigor and flexibility for your learning. They offer their sprint, team, and flex plans, which focus on either 2-month challenges, weekly classes to level up, or letting their 24/7 flexibility fit your schedule. The flex plan has been working best for me. Seriously, the process of booking and then joining a class or making an adjustment if needed is very seamless. It's also important to call out that this is a curated curriculum developed by experts and honed in a class setting, so you know the input that you're getting has been designed for quality. As someone who works from home with a young kid, this combo of flexibility and quality is very promising for my German. And I've also seen how Lingoda's approach works with other language learners. Ich kann Lingoda aufgrund all dieser Vorteile und meine Erfahrung wärmstens empfehlen. Remember to click my link in the description if you'd like to sign up for one of their plans with a $25 discount, and a big thank you to Lingoda. There are plenty of things you can measure when it comes to learning a language, so here are a few to consider. You can count how many pages you read each day in your target language or set a daily goal. You can do 100 days of writing at least 1 paragraph per day in your target language. You can tally up the number of times that a cashier or a waiter corrects your word choice or your pronunciation. You can also measure the number of tablespoons of tears that you cry every time that you try to learn grammar, and here are some other options for metrics as well. However, finding the right way to track your progress prevents you from investing time in something believing that you're progressing when in reality you're just meandering. So let's introduce a new framework. You can measure effort or you can measure results. Measuring results is difficult because it often describes many months of effort to reach that result. But on the other hand, measuring effort is a dangerous game. Just spending time with a language or keeping a streak alive doesn't guarantee progress if the way that you're spending your time doesn't produce results. Time spent reading English explanations of German grammar concepts does not count the same way as reading in German where those same grammar concepts come to life. Keeping a streak reinforces motivation, but rewarding yourself for putting on your running shoes does not mean that you can run a 5K. The most helpful things to track are types of effort that are guaranteed to push you forward in your language learning. And activities that provide feedback are the best course correction for improvement, and language learning is no exception. And that's why I recommend measuring your progress in a few specific ways. Vocabulary is a necessary evil. The number one way that I recommend that you track your progress is the total number of words that you know. While you can be proud of an ever-growing stack of paper note cards, using digital note cards with a tool like Anki means that you know on a per-word basis what you know in the language. You can focus on a review streak, or making sure that you're introducing at least 10 new words a day, or just making sure that what you're learning in class or what you're immersing with has a way to be absorbed into your brain. I say vocabulary is a necessary evil because it's damn near impossible to beat the efficiency of quick but regular vocab sessions. For example, even though I have note cards for more than 10,000 words in German, my reviews take less than 10 minutes a day. If you're introducing, let's say, 10 new words a day, that time will be longer, but in my experience, in my opinion, that's time unbelievably well spent. Make sure to review your note cards front to back and back to front so that your brain has to work on comprehension and recall. Another way that I prefer to track my progress is to see how automatically I can understand a book, a TV show, or a podcast in my target language. You may have more intensive times where you're picking apart every individual sentence and word in your target language, but chances are most of the time you're spending is just your brain being bathed in the language and taking in as much content as possible. Watching a scene or reading a paragraph, you can decide if you want to understand every single word, every structure, every sentence, or just the key points. But if you have that guilty feeling because you're not sure that you understood everything, have the humility to go back and use that as a way of marking your progress. Perhaps the pinnacle of marking your progress is conversations with native speakers. Work to maximize the amount of time that you can interact with others in your target language. If getting explicit corrections on what you're saying is of interest to you, you can always just ask the person outright for those corrections, and chances are you're going to get those corrections whether or not you ask for them. But you can also rely on other ways that people react to your speaking. That's things like confused expressions, or their body language, or them repeating something back to you to make sure that they've understood. Writing and getting corrections is also very helpful. A site like LangCorrect or posting in a WriteStreak subreddit for your specific target language can work wonders as you get feedback from native speakers on what you've written. Seeing a growing body of work as you write more and more in your target language can also be really motivating, in addition to the skills that you get based on the feedback from the native speakers. I mention all these ideas not only because different people learn differently, but because what you measure should and will change as your skills improve in your target language. As you start in a language, you can be proud of each individual word that you know, or have a list of grammar concepts or a list of conjugation tables that you've mastered. Then, as you begin to consume content and listen to songs and watch movies, it's good to keep a running tally of how many hours you're spending each week with your language. And when you begin speaking, you might first want to focus on your confidence and your fluency as you speak, and only then move on to speaking correctly or sounding like a native speaker. I suppose if you're watching a video like this from a channel where we analyze language learning and immersion data, you might not be a casual language learner. On the other hand, you may not be interested in formal classes or getting your level certified. The funny thing about that topic is that I had planned this video before partnering with Lingoda. The reason I went for it is because in my experience, a concentrated period where you take a class to try and go up one level can be unbelievably valuable. And the placement and final tests are the most daunting but most rewarding part of the experience because you see what level you're actually at. The cost of classes or a certification exam can be prohibitive to some, but if you're already spending hundreds of hours learning a language, putting your money where your mouth is can give you verifiable proof of your progress. It's important to remember that many schools, jobs, and governments require a piece of paper from an accredited something or other showing that you're competent in your target language. Reading all of Harry Potter in another language or watching all 20 seasons of One Piece isn't good enough for some people, apparently. To wrap up this video, here's where I'm at currently with tracking my language learning. While I continue to immerse every day and track how many words I've learned in German, I'm in the middle of an output bootcamp to improve my speaking and writing. I care about improving my overall speaking skills, but that does break down into speed, recall of words, comfort, the total number of words that I speak, and the number of mistakes. To track my growth and understand how different forms of output affects each one of these, every time that I speak with a tutor or finish a class or go through an hour of writing, I rate and record how the session was for each one of these dimensions. Those results are promising and coming in an upcoming video, but I'm tracking those like a maniac, so you don't have to. But like we showed in this video, assessing your growth can be simplified and tailored to make sure that you're making progress towards your goals. That's all I've got for this one. See you in the next one.